Have you ever wondered, why is it that men who are cold, detached, even seemingly indifferent, can hold such a powerful grip on so many women? It's not because they are perfect, nor because they are irresistibly attractive. It's because within that indifference lies a profound paradox of the human mind. We crave what eludes us. Alan Watts once said, "You only truly understand yourself when you observe how you respond to the world." And in love, that response, the addiction to emotion, the desperate search for recognition in the eyes of someone who doesn't look back, exposes our fear of abandonment, our hunger to be seen, and our addiction to the unreachable. This video is not merely about men or women. It is a mirror reflecting the soul, an invitation to step deeper into your own being, where you learn to see why you've handed your power to those who never turned toward you. Stay. Because in the end, you'll realize, true love isn't found in the chase, but in the awakening that allows you to stop running. There exists a deep paradox in human psychology, and in love, it becomes painfully clear. The ideal man, gallant, considerate, attentive, caring, seems to embody what every woman desires. He arrives on time, texts at the right moment, speaks gently, and does everything to make the woman he loves feel safe. And yet, slowly, she begins to lose interest. The feelings that once surged begin to fade, and suddenly she wonders, is there something wrong with me? Alan Watts once said, "When you try to hold on to water, it slips through your fingers. But if you let it be, it remains." Love is the same. When a man tries too hard to prove his affection, he unintentionally disturbs the natural flow of energy between two souls. Deep down, women are not seeking control or perfection. They seek aliveness, challenge, and the delicate tension between fear and desire. And here lies the paradox. Too much certainty leaves them feeling empty. The perfect man is not wrong for loving too deeply. But in love, there is an invisible law. When you give without keeping any of your own energy, you lose yourself. You become a flat mirror reflecting your partner's desires instead of a flame that draws them closer. Alan Watts called this the illusion of attachment, when we believe that the more we give, the more we'll be loved, forgetting that love arises from freedom, not submission. Women don't leave good men because they don't appreciate kindness. They leave because that kindness has lost its vitality, its mystery, its space for curiosity, its invitation to explore. A boy who is always there, always available, unconsciously robs a woman of the thrill of pursuit, and human beings, by nature, only stay fascinated by what demands effort to reach. The paradox of the perfect man doesn't lie in his goodness, but in his forgetting the art of distance. Love doesn't need eternal promises. It needs pauses long enough to remember, to long, to find one another again, freely. Thus, the opening question of this video is not merely about love. It is a call to awaken. Sometimes, to be loved deeply, you don't need to do more. You need to be more yourself. When the paradox of the perfect man concludes, when the too good man drives women away, we begin to see that its roots lie not only in emotion, but deep within human evolution. In the second part, we journey into the ancient software of the mind, where instincts from millions of years ago still quietly shape modern behavior, especially in how women choose and respond to men. In primitive times, when life was a brutal struggle for survival, women had to seek men capable of protection, hunting, and leadership. Back then, a man's survival value did not lie in sweet words, but in strength, status, and the ability to create safety. Though societies have changed over tens of thousands of years, that genetic code remains in our subconscious, a silent command in the mind. Choose the one who can survive. Alan Watts once said, "Modern man believes himself free, yet deep down he is still driven by ancient rhythms." And indeed, in love, women are drawn not merely to kindness or intellect, but to the energy of a man who makes them feel led, challenged, and safe in his strength. This isn't calculation, it's biology, an ancient program running quietly beneath every emotional decision. When a man begins to operate from a place of equal or lower energy, that is, when he becomes too dependent, too predictable, or loses his sense of self, a woman's subconscious registers a simple message: he cannot protect me. And in that very moment, the natural spark of attraction begins to fade. It's not because she wishes to hurt anyone, but because evolution itself whispers, "Seek the one who can ensure survival and growth." And that is why, at times, a woman may leave a good man for someone who seems more elusive, high value, or distant. Because the second man, though imperfect, ignites her instinctive longing to be led and to conquer, the very energy that makes her heart feel alive and full of life. The truth is, we do not love through reason. We love through invisible commands written into us by thousands of generations. And only when we recognize this do we understand that love is not a negotiation between two modern beings, but a symphony between reason and instinct, between evolution and awareness. Part 2 of this video is an invitation to look deeply into that truth, not to judge, but to understand. For only in understanding can we be free enough to love without being unconsciously driven by instinct. When the chapter on evolutionary instinct closes, we see clearly that in love, human beings are not only shaped by emotion, but also by ancient codes embedded in the mind for thousands of years. But as we move into part 3, the story grows subtler. We no longer live merely by instinct, but by awareness, by how we perceive each other's value. This is where modern psychology meets the philosophy of Alan Watts, where who we think we are often speaks louder than who we truly are. In today's world, attraction is no longer dictated by appearance, wealth, or social status alone. These are only the outer shells of value, while true magnetism lies in the way one expresses oneself, in the energy they radiate through their presence. Alan Watts once said, "When you stop trying to become someone, you return to yourself, and that is when others are most drawn to you." At this point, perceived value becomes the invisible force in every relationship. Consider two contrasting archetypes: a successful, wealthy lawyer who constantly seeks validation and fears rejection. He possesses high tangible value, yet his energy radiates insecurity and neediness. He longs to be loved, but that very need to be loved makes others feel his dependence, and thus his allure fades. In contrast, a humble bartender with modest income knows exactly who he is. He doesn't strive to prove, nor beg for attention. He is at ease with himself, savoring each moment. He doesn't say, "Love me." His energy says, "I am whole, and you are welcome to share this with me." And that effortless confidence creates natural magnetism, making women sense that he is a man of choice, of value, even if, on paper, he has nothing remarkable. This is what psychology calls sexual market value, SMV. Yet Alan Watts would see it through a more philosophical lens. Human beings never judge one another by objective reality, but through the subjective projections of their own minds. In other words, who you are matters less than who you believe yourself to be. When a man truly understands this, he no longer chases social standards to prove his worth. He becomes free, unbound by comparison, touched by the need to be chosen. And that freedom itself becomes irresistibly attractive, for it awakens the ancient feminine desire to follow the one who leads, and touches the deeper consciousness where every soul longs to be free in equal measure. Thus, perceived value is not merely an attraction strategy. It is the art of presence, the ability to live fully as yourself, allowing love to arise as a natural reflection of that wholeness. Here, we uncover a profound truth. Attraction doesn't come from what we possess, but from the energy of how we exist. But that is only half the story. Because in the realm of emotion, attraction is not just created. It is sustained by mystery and uncertainty. And that is where Part 4 begins, where Alan Watts whispers, "Love is like a dance. The moment you try to control every step, you lose its rhythm." Women, like all humans, invest emotionally in what they cannot yet be sure of. It is the ambiguity, those moments of, "I don't know what he's thinking, I'm not sure if he cares," that fuels the imagination. When a man creates a sense of refined uncertainty, he unconsciously awakens a woman's mind. She begins to think of him, to weave stories of her own, to bond emotionally with his image. Alan Watts once said, "Love is not possession, but a curious participation in the mystery of another." That mystery is the secret law of attraction. When everything becomes too clear, when a man texts every day, confesses constantly, appears everywhere she goes, love fades, not because he isn't good enough, but because he has killed uncertainty, the very energy that keeps emotion alive. By nature, we value what we cannot predict and take for granted what we can. We crave freedom, yet are intoxicated by what we cannot fully control. That is the paradox of human psychology and love, and the eternal truth Alan Watts reminds us of. It is in not knowing that life becomes truly alive. And so too is love. When a man is confident enough not to prove himself, calm enough not to control, he becomes an unfinished painting, and the woman longs to be the one who completes it. On the contrary, when a man reveals everything, when all becomes certain, the emotional journey ends. There is nothing left to explore, nothing left to imagine, and the mind, which longs for movement, will seek elsewhere to feel alive. Attraction, therefore, is not about playing silent games or manipulating emotions. It lies in the art of keeping a part of yourself for yourself. An attractive man is one who knows how to create space for imagination, who knows when to speak and when to stay silent, who understands how his absence can become the most powerful form of presence. In Alan Watts's philosophy, this is the art of non-grasping. When you stop trying to possess, you become the one sought after. When you no longer need to be loved, love finds you naturally. And that is the unchanging law of attraction, the law from which no heart, no matter how modern, can escape. We come to understand that magnetism does not lie in control, but in the ability to let go, consciously. Yet the journey of love does not end with mystery. It moves into an even subtler terrain, where women, often unconsciously, begin to test the man before them to discern his true strength. And this marks Part 5, Unconscious Tests and the Balance of Power. Alan Watts once said, "When you realize someone is testing you, know that they long to trust you." And these tests in love are not psychological games, but instinctive responses born of deep biological selection. At the core, a woman is not only seeking someone who loves her, but someone solid enough to trust. Thus, she unconsciously creates situations to see whether a man's strength is genuine, rooted from within. It might be a casual mention of another man, to see if you react with jealousy or confidence. It might be a date canceled at the last minute, not to wound you, but to observe whether you remain calm or grow angry. Or it might come as silence, a brief withdrawal, to see whether you lose control or remain steady in your emotions. None of these are manipulation. They are the intersection of biology and psychology, guiding her deeper question: are you strong enough to be my anchor when the storm comes? In Alan Watts's view, the attractive man is not one who never wavers, but one who recognizes emotion without being carried away by it. He understands that every action and word of another is a mirror reflecting his own inner state. When a woman challenges him, it is not a battlefield to win. It is an opportunity to express the power of stillness. In modern language, this is called holding the frame. It means maintaining your energetic posture, your essence, regardless of circumstance. A man who loses composure, reacts impulsively, or scrambles to prove his worth will always fail, for he has allowed someone else's emotion to dictate his own inner balance. Conversely, the man who knows how to step back, observe, and smile instead of argue, he is the one holding the invisible balance of power in the relationship. Alan Watts once said, "The truly strong man does not need to defeat others. He simply refuses to lose himself." And that is the essence of this 5th chapter. In love, the one who holds his center, who maintains his frame, understands that every test is not meant to break him, but to awaken his maturity. For in the end, women are not looking for a perfect man. They are seeking peace in the midst of storms. As Part 5 closes with these unconscious tests, a clearer picture emerges, a delicate dance between emotion and inner power. The man who doesn't get swept away by such trials naturally retains his position, steady, calm, magnetic. Yet here, a sobering truth begins to surface. In love, being loved and being desired are not the same. And that opens the door to the harsh truth: love and attraction are not identical. Alan Watts once said, "People do not truly love others. They love the feeling that others awaken within them." That single line captures the paradox of modern love perfectly. A woman may love a man who is kind, gentle, and attentive, but she is only attracted to the man who makes her feel something powerful inside. The man who is too accommodating gives her safety, but in doing so, he unknowingly takes away curiosity, the desire to be chosen. In contrast, the man who makes her wait, who makes her wonder, who leaves her uncertain if she truly has him, makes her come alive, passionate, and emotionally engaged. This is not cruelty on the part of women. It is simply how the psychology of attraction operates. The human brain is wired to chase intensity, because in evolution, emotion was a signal of vitality. The very sensations that quicken the heartbeat, that make us anxious, that create uncertainty, they trigger neurotransmitters like dopamine and norepinephrine, flooding us with excitement and euphoria. And it is precisely these feelings that make us mistake stimulation for love. Alan Watts once smiled and said, "We do not love others. We love our own reactions when we are with them." That is why the more a man tries to do everything right to be loved, the safer, yet duller, he becomes. But the man who dares to keep a touch of mystery, who doesn't bend to every expectation, becomes fascinating, magnetic, and impossible to predict. But Watts would also remind us that attraction alone cannot be the foundation. For if love depends only on strong emotion, it will fade the moment those first tremors settle. What is needed is balance, between feeling and challenge, between safety and desire, between closeness and space. The man who understands this does not chase love, nor does he try to control it. He knows that love is not something to be held, but something to be sustained through the vibrant energy of his own being. And when he walks with that awareness, without begging, without manipulating, without proving, he becomes both loved and desired. For as Alan Watts once said, when you stop trying to be loved, you begin to radiate the kind of energy that makes it impossible not to love you. And here we encounter one of the deepest paradoxes of love. The more a man strives to be loved, the more he loses his natural magnetism. For love, as Alan Watts taught, is the play of energy. When you let go, it begins to flow. And that realization leads us into the final part, becoming the man of the overflow mindset. This is not a lesson in romantic strategy, but an awakening of the spirit. The man with an overflow mindset does not play psychological games. He does not pretend to be cold, nor try to control another's emotions. He simply understands the laws of attraction and knows that every relationship begins with the energy he projects. He does not seek to conquer because he knows that a man of value never needs to chase. He attracts effortlessly through the wholeness of his presence. Alan Watts once said, "You cannot truly love another until you feel full within yourself." That is the essence of the overflow mindset, not needing recognition to feel worthy. Such a man does not seek approval. He does not fear rejection. He understands that genuine attraction doesn't come from being loved, but from being so complete that love is no longer needed to make him whole. When you hold your frame, that is, when you maintain your energy, ideals, and personal values regardless of circumstance, you become trustworthy, not because you try, but because you are. When you know how to give without losing yourself in pleasing others, you create balance between an open heart and a grounded self. And when you stop trying to prove your worth, you begin to radiate a natural confidence, the kind of energy that makes others feel safe, yet challenged, at ease, yet deeply captivated. Women do not seek a perfect man. They seek the man who makes them feel fortunate to be beside him, because he helps them touch the best parts of themselves. The man with an overflow mindset doesn't need to do much. He only needs to be fully present, honest, and free. Alan Watts once said, "When you stop trying to control the waves, you begin to surf them." So it is with love. When you stop trying to possess it, it becomes a natural flow. When you stop fearing loss, you finally become truly loved. This conclusion is not a manual for winning women, but an awakening for men who wish to win themselves. Because when you live in a state of overflow, full of love, full of confidence, full of freedom, every relationship ceases to be a conquest and becomes instead a meeting of two free souls growing together in love.